But what seemed a long time to them was a matter of seconds only. The tiger's great frame went limp and sank into the ground. And the man rose and put a foot upon it, and raising his face to the heavens, voiced a horrid cry, the victory cry of the arch-ape. And everyone was shocked. Shrimp's jaws dropped. "Is that Johnny Weissmuller?" he demanded.
Cinematic fantastic.
Atu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
By a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today. Hey everybody, welcome again to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast.
This is the 11th episode.
It is the 11th episode. We are slowly but surely, little by little, working our way through the season. Me and William have kind of decided to do 20 episodes roundabout.
Yeah. It might be slightly under or over, but who even knows? We're just gonna get through, go to Invisible Man, and get done.
Yeah.
The episode we're doing is about Tarzan the Ape Man, 1932. After all, as again, for people who don't know, we're gonna be in movies that were 1932 and 33 for the rest of this season. Pretty cool. There was just all sorts of movies that came out around then, all influential in their own right. And this one is very influential. While White Zombie was kind of like the great-granddaddy of zombies, this is, like, not even that. This movie invented everything we know about Tarzan, and he's just so popular that it's so hard to be able to condense him down into a format. So that's why we're probably going to take a bird's-eye view of all of it. But
yeah, this is a very famous character of Tarzan, created by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think the first book, called Tarzan of the Apes, didn't that come out in 1919? It was early in the 1900s, and Edgar Rice Burroughs was still alive at the time of the making of this movie.
Maybe. But for people who don't know who Tarzan is, and is like, what kind of a person is he? We're going to play a clip of our backyard friends, the Backyardigans, singing a song about Tarzan's aspects. And we'll play that here.
I'm Tarzan the animal guy. I live deep in the jungle with the bugs and the beasts and the birds. I understand their noises and they understand my words.
Hi, Tyrone. You're Tarzan, aren't you?
Hey, Pablo. I certainly am Tarzan.
I can tell, because I'm Tarzan too.
Really?
Yeah. I'm Tarzan the Very Strong. I live in the jungle, I swing on vines, and of course, I do this. Oh!
I break up big boulders and grind them into sand. And he can lift an elephant in the air with just one hand. I'm faster than a cheetah and mighty as King Kong. He's
You Tarzan?
You betcha, Austin.
Meet Tarzan, too.
Really?
I could tell. Are you Tarzan who doesn't say too much?
Ugh! He swings through the treetops with his viney jungle pad. He only says important things, for instance,
Quicksand, bad.
he rarely ever bothers with nouns and verbs and such.
And the context of that clip was that the episode is of the first season of Backyardigans. It's a really great show. Go watch it. It's called The Heart of the Jungle, and where the three kids all want to be Tarzan. One of them is Tarzan the animal guy. One of them is Tarzan the really strong. Another one is Tarzan that doesn't speak too much. So they describe that, I'm Tarzan the animal guy. Kind of thing.
He's all those things.
Yes, but an aspect that they did miss was that he doesn't appear in any of his movies until at least 25 minutes after the film starts.
I would say I haven't seen the second film in the series.
But surely in the first film.
Yeah, they have to. That kind of reminds me of like Godzilla. In the first Godzilla movie, Godzilla doesn't fully show up until a certain amount of time into it. And sometimes in other movies, you don't do the big reveal until you kind of build that tension and build that world. I will tell you, I have seen a little bit of a movie that Tarzan was in this franchise. They got to be specific about it. Called Tarzan and His Adventure in New York. You see him pretty quickly within the first 5 minutes.
But this is an aspect he doesn't hang around for at the beginning for quite a lot of time, usually.
This first movie, they tease him, and we'll talk about that more in the plot, but they tease him a little bit, kind of mysterious, but they focus on all the other characters first, because it's kind of, they make him a mystery.
So, let's talk about Tarzan the Ape Man's kind of thing. There isn't, too much in a lot of these movies. After all, these aren't, really great movies, but these were really popular, so, I mean...
Oh, they're fun! They do have some problematic issues. Of course, anything in this time period that you have in, the continent of Africa, you've got either a portrayal of African peoples who are real,
and their culture.
Yes.
And it's very hard to not misrepresent them.
Yeah, I think that they didn't have the luxury or privilege of what we see now after the Civil Rights era,
And stuff like the Song of the South movie as well kind of does this.
Those are kind of problematic. I will tell you this, though, and I think we'll talk about this in the plot part, but they filmed, I need to find out, maybe you know about the production of this, but when they filmed this, did they or did they not film this in America, or closer to North America?
Los Angeles. They filmed in Los Angeles, where they were based. The jungle. And it was, in fact, Tuca Lake. It's north of Los Angeles is where they did, because it was not very developed area, was the place they filmed. They also used footage from a film called Trader Horn, which Van Dyke, who's the director of this movie, also directed. And that had Africans in it.
He used is that where they got the footage in the scene that we'll talk about in the plot?
And the back projection as well is very obvious because
yikes.
They're using footage from that.
Oh, well, I'll go into that. Hey, but my question was, I thought that most of the actors that do come into contact with Tarzan and the rest of the group from Britain, London, or whatever, which I guess is her father, Beamish, which is another guy, and Harry Holt. I think aren't a lot of the African American people that they were probably hired in California in Hollywood, so they're not real Africans per se. They're basically American people.
Yeah, and as we'll see, there is a tribe of Africans which are very obviously not African. But some things I want to say about the movie is that the lions in this film were actually borrowed from a nearby lion farm owned by a man named Goebel. Mm-hmm. And it was called Thousand Oaks, CA, which is California. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And he would also sometimes even camp by the filming site near Sherwood, the Sherwood Forest, such a jungle.
Right.
Anyway, to watch the lions during filming because there's lions and he wanted to see them do cool stuff. And also another thing is that, yes, as I discussed, there is a tribe of African pygmy midget guys, and they're real midgets. They're just in blackface, though. And they have, makeup as well. They put, something bulbous on their head to make their heads look strange as well.
Yes, wow, there's lots of problematic stuff
Very
in what
deformed.
You said. So I would like to kind of, first off, say something, and I think we'll get to it, I'm sure. But I wanted to get this right off the top. So I think in the past, maybe in the 90s, and there are certain words that we used for people of smaller stature, like midget and dwarf, and the people in that community have unofficially have and some people who are in that community will say, well, we like other words, but the phrase I've heard is little people. So if we could say little people from now on, that would be cool.
Yeah, so it's when you say you win an award, you're I want to thank all the little people. So,
No, when they say that, they mean
lesser known people.
I do think that's a little rude, too, because I think everybody plays a part in who you are as an actor or director. I don't think anybody's little.
And we do not believe that dwarves are not humans in any right.
They absolutely are. So
they are humans.
Yes.
So a couple of goofs that they do get in this movie.
Yeah.
Is number one, zebras, and there's also some whatever they're called, antelopes.
Yeah.
As well. Do not live in jungles. That's the first thing.
Oh, they're on savannah. They live
in plains and savannas,
the plains
kind of thing. Also,
yeah.
jaguars do not live in Africa as well.
South America.
Leopards are in Africa, but Latin America is the domain of the jaguar.
Yes.
So you're supposed to believe it's a leopard.
Yes.
Just make
so
believe.
why couldn't they get leopards? Is it just cheaper to get jaguars from South America?
Yeah. And another thing is that the elephants they used were Indian elephants.
Yes.
Because they were tons more docile than African elephants, but their ears were smaller, so they put fake ears and tusks to make them look like African elephants. And also, they later stopped this practice in the MGM movies because they thought everyone was stupid.
What?
So they couldn't tell the difference, and so they're just like, don't put them on anymore. They'll just think they're African anyway.
Oh, wait, that's why I think it is in Tarzan's New York adventure that there are some baby elephants that Tarzan's adopted son is training, and their ears are rather small. I wonder if they were just like, these are Indian elephants. We're not going to spend any money making, fake ears anymore or fake tusks. We're done.
Yeah. And it's good for that, indeed.
Yeah, I don't think those elephants liked having... Now, ears are one thing. I mean, but fake tusks, come on.
Another thing is that chimpanzees were used in this movie, but apparently they're supposed to be baby gorillas. Now, baby gorillas look entirely different than chimps. I thought that they weren't actually supposed to be, but they are. So I'm like, what?
Well, the most famous chimpanzee of all in the Tarzan franchise is Cheetah, played by Mr. Jiggs.
Yeah, and there's also some other chimpanzees that also escaped and are still living in Florida.
What?
As well,
really?
Apparently.
Are you kidding me?
And another thing is that in the book, Jane is American. In this film, she's British. This is how they got it in the Tarzan Disney movie, that she was British. She's supposed to be American.
Plus, she's also British in the movie. There's a movie comes out, I think, in 1984, I think, called Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. That's a long title. But that movie has an American woman. She could not do a British accent to save her life. She's kind of Southern. And so another actress had to dub over her, famous actress had to dub over her lines with like a British accent. And he was supposed to be a British or Scottish lord. See, that's the thing. I think that we're getting into actual character of Tarzan. I'll tell you real quick, from the book, his father and mother are going on a trip, I don't remember why, to Africa for some reason. And they are in a shipwreck, and they end up in Africa, and I think the wife dies for some reason. In one of the movies, it was malaria or something that was causing her to be delirious. And then the father is left over. They have a child, they have a baby, but for some kind of accident happens and the father dies, and a ape mother who has lost her own baby for some reason, she takes the human child back into the ape commune and raises him as her own.
Hopefully there wasn't an ape named Hitler, because there's a commune.
Oh, no. No, commune is what the Communist Party took. So I think you're probably you're confusing Ape Hitler with Ape Stalin, perhaps. But yeah, they both have amazing mustaches. We don't like their politics, but their mustaches are amazing.
And some other quick facts is that the aforementioned Trader Horn movie, which was a very popular MGM film, it had so much footage they were dying to use it, and anywhere, just elsewhere. They had to use it somewhere, and that was used in this film. That's the reason. Yeah,
that's the reason why it doesn't match up. But they don't care. They're like, they won't. I think they just go, we'll just use it. They'll never notice, and people may have noticed, but they just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, but it's African footage after all. So another thing is that the voice of Disney's Tarzan was the grandson of Sam Goldwyn, who was one of the namesakes for MGM. It's Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
I did not know that. It was Tony Goldwyn. And I did not know Tony Goldwyn was related to the Goldwyns of MGM. Oh, wow.
That's fun.
That's trivia right there.
And after all, MGM was founded by 3 different production people, which is Metro Pictures, and there was Golden Pictures, and there was Louis B. Mayer Productions as well.
Louis B. Mayer could get anything he wanted happen. I mean, if he was like... If somebody, wanted to be a movie star, all they had to do was just like, I'm somehow going to get in Louis B. Mayer's office and I'm going to give him my spiel, and I'm gonna get in pictures.
Another fact is that the Wakanda tribe is called the Wakanda tribe in this film, funnily enough.
They then argue about if they actually said Wakanda. They did.
But they did say Wakanda, and it's supposed to be Wakumba. Another fact about this movie that people know for some reason is that Hitler disliked this movie. And there was also a lot of Germans, especially in the later films, like German Slavic people, who got, attacked.
Oh, no, yeah. There was a movie later on in the franchise called Tarzan Triumphs, and he fights Nazis. Oh, yeah, there's a line where Tarzan says, people in Africa make war to live, but you live to make war. And later on, Tarzan, he gets so mad, he's like, now Tarzan make war. And he actually attacks tanks and stuff like that with elephants, and he does it. And there's a scene, I don't want to go into detail on this, but there's a scene at the end where there's a radio that is supposed to contact Berlin, and he gets on the speaker, and somebody else thinks it's Hitler talking. So basically, I guess they're trying to the cheetah, the chimpanzee. It's kind of a joke about, he's making a monkey out of, basically, he's a primitive ape, because it was kind of the joke. They were thinking it was the Fuhrer.
And another thing I'd like to do is because we originally wanted to do the whole franchise thing, or at least all the MGM movies, because there's so many MGM and RKO combined, we can't just do all that. And we couldn't do the MGM saga entirely, so we decided to do just this movie. And Dad did watch New York Adventure, though. I have not watched any of the other movies, but I will. We will sum up the plot later, and I will sum up their production kind of thing here as well, before we get into the plot.
I will tell you, this is, before you go into the production and talk about, why they made it and everything, I think there is, in the second movie, which is Tarzan and his mate, these are pre-Hays Code. So there was a scene.
Yeah, Jane was with Tarzan, and they were in the lake.
They're
and,
swimming.
It was their birthday, and she decided to wear the clothes that she wore on a birthday. So, I mean...
Although I will tell you this, I think maybe because the swimming was acrobatic, that it was a stand-in, and it was far enough away, I think.
That you could just do a tan skin tight suit kind of thing.
Yeah, well, no, it was a stand-in. It was But the thing is that was pre-Hays Code, and that's why we kind of couldn't do that one, because it kind of skirts the rating system. The third one has a couple scenes with African women without shirts on, and but I think some of the other ones, further on, especially when you get closer to the 40s, they're after the Hays Code, so you see a little bit of the differences.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. I mean, they were trying to do the Hays Code, in the 1930s, starting with, 1931, 32, but they couldn't do it successfully until it finally got a hold of every single production company of motion pictures in 1937-38. So that's when the Hays Code, we say, came into effect. So, Tarzan and his mate. This, I can't tell what this doesn't make sense, because it's one place in the paragraph it says, this picture obtained $2 million in box office, and another place it says it didn't make that much money in box office, so I'm like, well, was that the money that, their budget? Or does just some doesn't add up
here?
Well,
I will tell you, if you look at other films in the franchise going forward, I refer to this as the MGM RKO part of the franchise, because it starred, honestly, this is the guy I think of when I think of Tarzan, because I saw these movies when I was younger.
The RKO ones?
Well, I saw some of the later MGM ones and the RKO ones. I didn't know who they were made by when I was younger, but they would come on a channel that is, it's no longer around anymore. I think they have their own streaming service now, but it was Turner Classic Movies, and it was so great. I wish it was still around, because
there's some appreciation that we can have for these films.
I will tell you this right now. I'm going to do take a small side trip, I promise. Turner Classic Movies, or TCM, was where I was exposed to a lot of older movies, from Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock, the Universal monster movies, or some of the 1950s stuff, or some of the stuff from the 30s and 40s, James Cagney movies. That's where I saw Man of a Thousand Faces, which was about Lon Chaney, that had James Cagney. I saw that there. It was a great cable channel, and my mom used to like watching old movies there too when it was on. And so we would watch that. And they also had, during the times of Halloween, they would show a lot of these scary movies like The Wolfman and Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. It was fantastic. You'd watch them all for free. It was great. Hunchback, whatever. I think I saw The Hunchback with Charles Laughton. I've seen Charles Laughton. You're going to see him in the next movie we're going to do, but I won't tell you anything more than that. Charles Laughton is just chef's kiss. Great. I think he's excellent. Anyway, moving on.
Over the production of this movie, at first, like, it was halted because they did not have enough money due to so much extra footage that they had taken. They did not have any more money. So then they got back to it again, but then a couple of mishaps happened where they're like, halt, you miscasted, in quotations. So the director and some other actors were switched out due to this miscasting. And people ended up confused over who was actually the director a lot of time, or some people.
You're kind of confusing me when you're saying miscasting, like with air quotes, and I would like you to explain, do you know what that means? Why are you saying it like that, miscasting?
Because that's what it said, it was in quotations.
Yeah, but
I don't really know.
It doesn't explain what that means. Okay, that makes it even more mysterious to me. So they filmed a lot of extra footage, and they weren't planning on editing it down? Was it originally a longer film?
Well, I'll talk about this slightly more later, but yes, they did eventually edit some stuff out, but they just had so much footage they went bankrupt. Or not like bankrupt, sorry. They did not have much money, and so then... But the film eventually did get out.
They let that camera run. I mean...
Yeah, there was just so much extra film and retakes and shots that 17 minutes were cut out of the final film.
That's true. That's not bad,
17
actually.
Minutes.
That's not bad.
But it's a huge amount of footage.
If what we got was an hour and 40 minutes, right, and 17 minutes was cut out, that's not that much comparison. I've seen other situations where they said an hour of footage had been cut out.
But yeah, even like 10 minutes can like cut quite a bit out of a movie.
That's not too bad. Actually, I'll tell you right now, there are unedited cuts of movies that have like 30, 40 extra minutes. So, I mean, they may have... Film was expensive. So if you sit there and you run, if you do that many takes, when film, was a little cheaper... and they were able to get, I think, further on into the 40s, 50s, 60s, there are lots of directors who would ask for many, 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 many takes. And because they're such a creative force, the movie studio would be like, okay, fine, we know that he makes really high quality movies, so if he wants to do 100 takes, he can do it. So I think they kind of eat the cost a little bit when it comes to takes. But early on in this period, in the 30s, they couldn't do too many takes. They were like, okay, cut it.
Yeah.
Print, we got it.
But, again, this movie was very controversial, but it also happened to be preserved by the government. It is preserved by the government.
I will tell you, there's a film industry deal, preservation group within the government, and the reason they created this is because there are some films that are considered historically significant. Movies like, Frankenstein, and also some of the older movies that we mentioned, that we've seen, like Nosferatu and things like that. There are certain groups and certain governmental agencies that have chosen them as important to history, and so they've actually spent much more time trying to restore them, and they made it a project. So I'm very thankful, for them considering these things to be works of art. I mean, either historical significance or artistic significance. I'm glad they restore these things.
And so Tarzan escapes. Some things about this movie is that there's a guy named McKay who he was the previous animal director of the previous movie, and I think maybe the first one as well. And he was initially given director for this film because they were so happy with his work in the previous, but Richard Thorpe got final credit for the directing, so it probably went to him. And actor John Farrow also shot the entire film. So, who was director again?
Right.
And another thing is that a scene was deleted of Tarzan fighting a vampire bat because it was too intense.
Right. Although, in a way, I think it probably was really goofy.
Yeah.
Because how big would that vampire bat have to be for it to be awesome? He'd have to be the size of a man. So, but if he's not, and he's the size of a regular vampire bat, because they're actually small. I don't know if you've ever seen them in real life. They're kind of small. So seeing Tarzan wrestle around with a tiny bat on a string, I guess I'm just like, okay.
I mean, he hated Dracula so much, I guess.
Oh, Tarzan versus Dracula is a movie I would pay to see.
Yeah, we have to have Abbott and Costello meet Dracula and Tarzan.
Oh my goodness.
In fact, they actually do that, don't they?
There is a Abbott and Costello movie called Africa Screams. I don't think it actually has Tarzan in it. I can't say I haven't seen it. It's findable. You could probably find it.
But if we do see Dracula and Tarzan together, we can say that we were right when we get to Abbott and Costello meet Dracula.
I don't think Tarzan is in Abbott and Costello meet.
It might have been an SNL short, actually, or just some sort of short they put Tarzan and Dracula together.
No, it was Tarzan and Frankenstein because they both are. It was Tonto from Lone Ranger, and it was Frankenstein, and it was Tarzan. Yeah, they did a thing where they said, now we are going to have a reading of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven by Tonto, Frankenstein, and Tarzan. And he went, okay, I cannot do it justice. Just see if you can look it up on YouTube. It's Tarzan, Tonto, and Frankenstein SNL, and I'm sure it's in there. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, so Tarzan finds a son. Some things I could say was this film, the filming of this was delayed 3 years due to needing to get licenses again because it expired for the previous movie because they're like, we're done, but they actually weren't with the trilogy. So there's a fourth movie. The film was originally called Tarzan in Exile. Apparently, the choice of having them adopt the son in the first place, while it was called Tarzan in Exile, was to satisfy those upset with the two not being married due to, things that go on in the second film.
Exactly. So they were like, we've got to get them a kid, but we can't hint that they are doing anything married couples do. So we're going to have them adopt a young child.
And Jane was going to die. That's quite literally a fact. Apparently, she was going to die in that film and be replaced by Boy.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the really creatively named young child. His name is Boy, which kind of makes it interesting in the later movie Tarzan Adventure in New York, where Boy with a capital B, when he is kidnapped and taken to America. And they say boy so many times, you're going to think it's like God of War.
Yes, God of War. He says boy so many times.
Isn't it it's God of War, like, considered the fourth game? You're the game expert.
Because there was a PS3 one.
It's the one where he's fighting Viking gods.
He's fighting Ares.
Norse god. It's when he's fighting Norse gods.
And Ares as well.
Yeah, well, this is later after that. And I don't know which one he has where the boy actually shows up, but he says boy a lot. It's infamous. So, no, this boy is called Boy, and they're saying boy. We're looking for Boy. We look for Boy, and they're like, and people in America are like, yeah, what? You got to be more specific than that. A boy, come on.
Yeah, so people didn't like that Jane was going to die and be replaced, so then that was changed. And another thing, that the boy was taught to swim by Tarzan's actor Johnny Weissmuller, and he actually taught Boy to swim on set, so that's really heartwarming.
Yeah.
And the film also earned a good old $1 million, just like the first one. Even though you think that they're bad, they got so much buku bucks, man.
Now let's talk about that for a second. Now, I believe, you may have to check the box office receipts on this, but I believe a lot of the money that these films made, they did pretty well, in their first run. I think when they went on VHS, people rented these a lot. I mean, they're awesome adventure movies, and I wonder if a lot of people that were around were little kids when these movies came out, and they got older, and they came out on VHS, that they rented them a lot. I think if you look at it, it has a little parentheses. It says rentals. So how much of it was during the time when the movie came out, and how much of it was the rentals? Who's to tell? But they're profitable. That's all we need to say about that.
So Tarzan's New York Adventure. Two things I can say about that is that apparently Johnny Weissmuller, he said he did a stunt where he jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge in the movie, but the people who made the film said this was actually just a dummy. So I don't know if it's actually proven, but I would have liked to see him do his own stunt. He's done his own stunts before, and like riding elephants and rhinos and stuff, actually.
And as of course, as you will say soon, he is a Olympic medalist.
So, to begin the cast off, we're going to talk about the director, which is W.S. Van Dyke. Not to be confused with Dick Van Dyke.
No, of course not.
The famous sitcom person kind of thing.
Or the goatee, the guy who came up with the Van Dyke goatee, that's a different guy altogether.
So, this dude got 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Director for the Thin Man movie series and San Francisco. And he also, it says he directed 4 actors to Oscar nominations. That does not make grammatical sense, so I'll just say that he tutored them.
No, I will tell you what that means is that he directed some movies that had Oscar-winning performances in them.
Ah.
That's what that means. Oh, by the way, the Thin Man series is very well done. It is not necessarily about a guy who's actually super thin. It's just a
thin crook.
No, it's a detective kind of series. He's known as the Thin Man. So go ahead.
So these 4 are William Powell, Norma Shearer, Robert Morley, and a guy named Spencer Tracy.
Spencer Tracy.
That does ring a bell, but I don't know what he did.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1943, which we're going to do.
Oh, he directed that movie?
No, he's in it. He plays Dr. Jekyll.
Ooh, that's cool.
I will tell you this, Spencer Tracy is very well known for what are called screwball comedies. They are
just entirely very wacky.
They use a lot of strange, goofy situations. They use a lot of wordplay. He was with Katharine Hepburn in a lot of movies. That's one thing I do remember. He was in other, dramatic roles, but I'm sorry. That's when I think of Spencer Tracy, I think of him and Katharine Hepburn kind of trading barbs against each other, kind of verbal wordplay. But anyway, go ahead.
So, since this dude was known as a very reliable craftsman, and he made his films on schedule, under budget commonly, he earned his name One Take Dyke for his quick and efficient style of filming. That he developed this directing tons of silent films. He directed tons of those. He also directed the Oscar-winning classic that's funnily called Eskimo Wife Traders.
What? Okay.
In which he also had a featured acting role. And he was also known for allowing ad-libbing that kept in the film. He kept it in the film. And for coaxing natural performances from his actors.
That's good.
To ad-lib.
That's good.
If it's done right, then that's good. Like, for instance, the Iron Man and Spider-Man hugging scene. That's great ad-libbing kind of thing. But if it's not done well, then
it's awkward and
it's awkward,
cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell. It has a certain feel to it.
And he was also often called in to work a few days or more, uncredited, on another film that was in trouble or had gone over production schedule. So he was just that good as we'll bring this guy over and they'll whip these boys into shape.
He's a ringer. He's one of those guys that you pull in to get the job done.
And this dude is also known for being very patriotic. Also, prior to World War II, he set up a Marine Corps Reserve recruiting office in his own office at MGM because he was a major. He was a captain, and then he became a major through upgrading.
Promotions, you mean?
His promotions?
Yeah.
And his rank of major often showed up in his later film credits because he was a major, and he was proud of it. He was influential in encouraging other MGM stars to join the military during the early days of war. And including people such as Clark Gable, James Stewart, and Robert Taylor. Don't know those dudes.
Yeah,
but he was just very patriotic.
Clark Gable was in a very famous movie, Oscar-winning movie called Gone with the Wind.
Ah, Gone with the Wind. That's cool.
If you see him, he has a very, a pencil-thin mustache. It's very recognizable. James Stewart? You know him because, oh my goodness, you're going to hate me for this, but It's a Wonderful Life. He was the main character, and he talks like this. Well, Mary, what we've got here is such a... I can't do a good imitation.
A Wonderful Life. Anyway, so we have some people who've had tragic lives during their later years, and so this one is really tragic. Get prepared. So, the last movie that he directed is called Journey for Margaret, came out in 1942, and he directed this one despite having cancer.
Oh, no.
So he was just down terrible, and he was so ill that this is so tragic. After directing the final scenes for this movie, he said his goodbyes then and there to his family, and then he went over to a nearby bridge or something, and committed addendum mortis Sudoku.
Oh, no, okay, he deleted himself, yeah.
Yeah. That's so tragic. He was just so ill and just in pain that he just didn't want
to live anymore.
Continue existing. That's tragic.
That is tragic.
This dude had an incredible life and lots of ups and downs. A lot of other people we're going to talk about also kind of got down in the dumps later in their life, or just got cancer or heart attack.
Yeah, that happens a lot with a lot of these actors, I mean, they didn't die in a blaze of bullets, doing a robbery or something. I mean,
He died from his own spirit being so crushed by sickness and disease.
Yeah.
That he was just like, peace out, man.
Yeah.
That's just terrible.
So, he was the director. So, who are the other...
Who was the producer? Irving Thalberg was the producer.
Yes.
One thing was that he produced with Laemmle, Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was Lon Chaney's Limelight, and he also helped make MGM, was ahead for a while as well. So he was assistant of
He was a good producer. Yeah, he could get funding.
And he was also on Trey DeHorn as well, along with Van Dyke, probably how they met, as well as, being an MGM.
Yeah, that they were like, we did well together before, and it was an Africa-based picture, so let's do it again, Irving. So why not?
So we have Marina Sullivan. She was Jane Parker. In 2020, she was listed as number 8 for the Irish Times list of Ireland's greatest film actors. She was Irish.
Yes.
Although she's supposed to be British. So maybe it's even still, she's supposed to be American, but is not. So
now wait a minute. There's one thing that I will mention in the book. I believe it's Porter, not Parker.
Yeah.
But they did do Parker for the movies for some reason.
But this was fixed in the Disney Tarzan. She was Jane Porter.
That's true. Also, I think also in Greystoke, that long title, Greystoke. I think it is Jane Porter in that too. So, but yeah, go ahead. She played Jane Parker,
and also she early in her film career, she was a 20th Century Fox actor. She was with Fox on a ton of movies. There's so many movies. Overall, it's not as ton of movies compared to a lot of people we're gonna see. Just sometimes they just have so much movies. And so she overall bounced everywhere from people to people, Paramount kind of thing, Paramount, Universal. I don't think she did Universal, but she might have.
So she didn't sign away her existence to a particular studio. She
signed her will to MGM.
Eventually,
that's where she stayed for a while. And she also, as with a couple of the people we're going to talk about, she had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
Alongside Weissmuller as well, because they were both very great and remembered for this movie.
They were connected together because of that, yeah.
And so she died from complications due to heart surgery. So the heart surgery wasn't succul.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Stuff. So, and she eventually died.
I will tell you about her portrayal of Jane. I think there's a handful of the movies where she is not there in the movies, and the excuse they give is that she's working for the British war effort in England. But when she does come back...
She's a very nice girl.
Yeah, she is. And
she's very sweet, and she's just like, oh, what am I going to do with you, Tarzan?
She's great with Johnny. I mean, Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan. They play off each other so well. And she's great. She's great with Cheetah and Boy. It's just, it's very iconic. They did replace her for, I think, one movie with Brenda Joyce, who I don't know a lot about, but I know that she may have had lighter hair than Maureen O'Sullivan.
Oh yeah, she was probably the stunt double for the famous birthday suit swimming scene.
I don't remember, but regardless.
Yeah, I think so. So next we have Neil Hamilton as Harry Holt. And tell him who he's best remembered for, Father.
He is best remembered, and I remember him. And I was like, who is that guy? I'd know him from somewhere. He is Commissioner James Gordon on the 1960s Batman series. He was always calling Batman on this red phone with one button on it. And, when something bad would happen, whether the Joker would be doing some kind of caper or the Riddler had left a message telling about his next crime, Commissioner Gordon would press that red button on that phone and call.
And by that
Bruce
time,
Wayne.
he was extremely old, so he looked the way he did in that movie. There's going to be a ton of people we talk about as well who are just like, these are when they were young. Like, they used to be like old and stuff. The next one we're going to talk about was also kind of like that way, which is Doris Lloyd as Mrs. Cutton. Now, I don't remember this character that much. I don't think it was her, Jane's mother, of course. Jane's mother, she was fairly annoying in this movie. She's like, yeah, darling, I gotta do this, darling, and, like, stuff.
I wonder if that was her mother or there was another lady there. I couldn't tell. She was very dismissive of that lady.
She's perhaps best known for her roles in Sound of Music, which is one we're not doing, and The Time Machine, 1960, which we are doing.
Also, by the way, we are going to do the film version. It's called Batman the Movie. It came out in the 1960s. That has Commissioner Gordon in it as Neil Hamilton.
As Neil Hamilton?
Yeah.
Cool. And so Forrester Harvey is Beamish, and we don't have much for him except that he is in The Invisible Man. He's a tavern owner, and he's also in The Wolf Man as well.
Wow.
And
some Universal work, I guess.
And reportedly here, I quote, a number of reference works incorrectly identify him as having played Little Maria's father in Frankenstein.
Right, no, that's not him.
So I'm going to talk about a couple of other people who were in other movies as well.
Yeah.
Starting with Johnny Sheffield as Boy.
As Boy!
He had a very great relationship with Johnny Weissmuller, and he was a child star in 1938, and he was only 5 when he auditioned for Boy because he was in a magazine, because it says, you got a kid that looks like Tarzan Jr., acts like Tarzan Jr.? Well then, come right up, and it's just like his father saw an ad in the MGM put out when they were going to make this movie, and brought him to audition, and then he got the role.
Yeah.
Very sweet. And he continued to be Boy along Weissmuller and O'Sullivan, even in the RKO movies. So that continued for a while. There's like so many RKO movies that it's just not a joke.
There's like 11 or 12 total MGM and RKO movies.
This is just so popular.
That have Weissmuller in it.
Yeah. Also, when he was a teen, he starred in Bomba the Jungle Boy, which was a movie series serial kind of thing. It also had an adventure book series as well.
It did. I haven't read those yet, but I know where to get them.
George of the Jungle kind of thing before George of the Jungle kind of thing.
Oh, George of the Jungle was just is honestly a comedic copy off of Tarzan. It just is.
So when he was 79, he fell off a ladder. And reportedly he was fine. He wasn't that injured at all, but he died from a heart attack. Right after. That's tragic.
Oh my goodness.
These people have kind of tragic deaths, but not as much as the director, man.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing. Let's move on.
I wanted to also talk about one thing was the villain of Find Savoy, or at least one of them. There's Medford and Vondermeer, I think, are the villains as far as I know. Medford was played by Tom Conway, and he was known for playing Private Eyes in, the classic style movie. And he was also in 101 Dalmatians as the voice of the game show host on the TV. And his life ended in so much tragedy. Like, he was just down in the dumps, broke, drunk, and just absolutely done. And he couldn't afford his doctor. He couldn't pay his doctor, so he just died.
Oh my goodness.
Man. So, also, for New York Adventure, we have a couple of people who I thought were kind of interesting. Paul Kelly, he's Jimmy Shields, who was a pilot. And before he did this movie, there was a controversy with him. You want to talk about that?
I don't know any controversy about that.
So...
Do you?
There was one day, he was drunk, and then there was another dude who they had competition over, there was an affair and stuff, involved both of them and another woman, and they were both drunk, and the dude, he was bigger than that other dude. Paul Kelly just slapped that guy right in the face, and he was dead. So then
Wow.
he got in the trial for manslaughter, and
You sure he wasn't in a trial for manslapper?
well, it's death by slaps technically. So
you can kill a person by slapping them, or the person that slaps can end their career.
yeah, I guess he liked his cut. G.
Yeah, that happened recently. I won't say who, but somebody slapped somebody else. They were both famous actors, and
It ended their careers.
one of them, yeah, their careers are probably pretty rough right now.
So to cut this story short, they got 10 years in prison. Him and his wife, as well, got 2 years in prison for felony conspiracy, like just cover up kind of thing, because she was like, I don't know this man, I didn't have any relationship with him, but this is false. So they got out after 19 months on parole, on condition that Paul Kelly must never marry for 20 months, and that his work pay must be limited severely. So he only got $25 a week. Man.
I think this podcast, in some ways, if we don't watch it, it's going to turn into a true crime podcast. And I don't know, those true crime podcasts, they do get a lot of views. But honestly, I like to focus on the work that the actors do before they screw it up by slapping someone to death.
And there's also two people I thought their names were really funny. So there was a circus roundabout in this movie, and a roustabout. And his name is Elmo Lincoln. Elmo. Just cue the Elmo.
But wait, Elmo Lincoln played Tarzan in the silent Tarzan in 1918.
Yeah, he basically did only Tarzan movies. He did 4 Tarzan movies. That's his whole career.
Yeah.
And the final guy before we get to Weissmuller is a guy who goes by Chill Wills. And he played Manchester Montford in this movie. And
yeah, okay.
His name was funny. And
to sum up, Jason describes a scene in this movie where Cheetah the monkey calls Chill Will's character and he thinks it's Jane.
Yeah, again, this guy, he had a Western voice. He was a singer for a lot. He was a singer and actor. And his deep Western voice was perfect for voicing the role of Francis the Talking Mule, which was a famous comedy character back then. Overall, just tons of Western movies. Just that's his whole career, is Western movies. Finally, we get to Johnny Weissmuller as the famous Tarzan.
Oh, I'm absolutely wrong. I absolutely am wrong. Chill Wills is not the guy I was thinking of.
Ah.
Okay.
Welp. That's all right. You just had to give it a second thought.
Oh my goodness. I'll keep going, and after we talk about Johnny Weissmuller, I'll tell you who the actor was who I was thinking of. I totally got them mixed up, but you'll be fine.
All right. So this dude, as well as Tarzan as an icon, very famous dude, and he did a lot of good things. This guy has a very huge backstory. So, first of all, he was a Olympic competitive swimming person, and he was in the Olympics. He won 5 gold medals. He won the 1,000 meter freestyle and the 4x20 meter relay race event at the Paris Games and the Amsterdam Games as well. And he was one of the best competitive swimming records ever. He had those just on par, just completely. So, he also won a bronze medal in the water polo competition that was in Paris. Water polo, I wouldn't choose that as my first or second or fifth choice, but whatever, for an Olympics. So, he learned his love of swimming in Lake Michigan, like the beach in Chicago. That's where he lived. That's where he learned, and he was so good, he entered and won so many races. And when he was 11, he lied to the people to join the YMCA. So he got in there early because they required them being 12. But he's like, I'm close enough. I get to... He won every swimming race he entered. He excelled at running, high jumping, and he did all that stuff. And before long, he was on one of the best swim teams in the country. And his first film was the non-speaking role of Adam in the movie Glorifying the American Girl. In this movie, he's famous for appearing wearing only an enormous fig leaf while hoisting Mary Eaton on his shoulders in the movie poster, as well as the movie.
So in a way, he's kind of...
This is how they found him, because he looks so much like Tarzan that they're just like, this dude.
There was somebody who noticed him later on swimming, and they were like, oh, that looks great. But honestly, it isn't really him doing a test, to see what Tarzan... But honestly, you could look at that and go, okay, he's playing Adam, the first man.
No, it's not the first man. He's just Adam is his name of the character.
I thought
it's a movie called Glorifying the American Girl. It's not the Genesis story.
I don't think it's the Genesis story, but I think honestly it may have been a little skit, because sometimes in these movies they have little musical parts, or I think it because the fig leaf. Remember Adam in the Book of Genesis. He was covered with a fig leaf after he had eaten the fruit of the tree of our knowledge of good and evil, and he had to wear a fig leaf. So I think it might be, without knowing the plot of that, we'll just have to agree to disagree on who we think Adam is.
I'm pretty sure that you're wrong. Anyway, at the time, he was advertising underwear for a company that I did not see the name of.
BVD.
Because I didn't put it down. BVD.
BVD.
And in order to get MGM to get him, they had to swap him for some of their other actors of this movie and some of their employees as well to advertise their underwear as well. That's funny.
Yeah, he said he got some other actors to be models for BVD, and then that kind of got him off the hook so he could be in Tarzan.
And he was also in the film Jungle Gym as well. That's JIM because it's a name,
yes,
not a gym as in the place where you work out and you get sweaty, bro. You get sweaty, bro.
He did that after he got done with the Tarzan movies, and this one wore significantly a lot more clothes, and he was more of he could use his normal accent, his normal voice. He was kind of a safari kind of adventurer and explorer kind of guy.
And also a guy that did not wear anything but underwear most of the movies that he did.
Right.
So also he saved many people's lives over the course of his life as well. So one time in 1927, he was training for the Chicago Marathon, and he saved 11 people from drowning after an accident with their boat in Chicago. So he was just a lifeguard kind of character there, and lots of philanthropy kind of thing.
He's Aquaman. He's Aquaman. I mean, I'm telling you.
This dude can even get a Tarzan yell while being submerged in water.
Exactly.
So don't treat it as a goof of this movie. By the way, that's what happens in this movie. So instead treat it as he's just that good.
Yeah. Nobody can beat this guy.
1977. He broke his hip and leg, and followed by strokes and death by pulmonary edema at 79.
Edema.
So that's the way, edema, that's how he went. So it's basically like getting liquid in your lungs caught in there, so you just die by suffocation.
And how terrible is it to be such an amazing swimmer and have a physique like that and be healthy, And because
he was healthy.
No, I mean, but when he broke his hip and his leg, you can't really swim after that, and so, there's something that you lose, I think, when you can't do those things that you love so much.
Yeah, but he was a health fanatic, in fact, and he lived that kind of lifestyle even still. But it's really sad, and he was even honored by a 21 gun salute, which is a big honor, and it was arranged by President Reagan. Goodness. So they gave him a full-on salute, and they fired all sorts of guns in the sky, and it was just fireworks.
But his funeral though did not have a whole lot of people there. I wonder if it was because they did not want to. have too many people there. I think that didn't they bury him in Acapulco in Mexico?
I don't know.
He loved Acapulco, Mexico so much, and they have a lot of cliffs to dive off of too. But I think that's where he might be buried.
And also, in the last Tarzan movie, Edgar Rice Burroughs himself even tributed to him for his powerful screen persona, and he was just a really great icon. And this is the last paragraph of the last Tarzan novel. It says, "But what seemed a long time to them was a matter of seconds only. The tiger's great frame went limp and sank into the ground. And the man rose and put a foot upon it, and raising his face to the heavens, voiced a horrid cry, the victory cry of the arch-ape. And everyone was shocked. Suddenly, recognition lit the eyes of Jerry Lucas. 'John Clayton,' he said, 'Lord Greystoke, Tarzan of the Apes.' Shrimp's jaws dropped. 'Is that Johnny Weissmuller?' he demanded. And that's where he said his name. That's his tribute. And Tarzan shook his head as though to clear his brain. His thin veneer of civilization had been consumed by the fires of battle. And that's where it ends. So he was attributed to. And the actor's name got in Tarzan. That's amazing. And that's all I have of him.
Yeah, and also as a side note, before we continue, the actor who I was actually thinking about was Mantan Moreland. He was, if you watched the New York Adventure, you'll know who I'm talking about.
But I haven't watched any of the movies, so if there was an actor or a character whom I missed that was important and to talk about, I apologize because, well, I don't know who are important characters.
I think we got the main people out. I mean, you got Harry Holt, you've got Tarzan, you've got Jane Parker.
But this has been very extensive, so we'll probably go into our break. I've been trying to make sure that it's been fast, so
no, you did
you
did excellently with that. Now, are we gonna swing on into the plot?
Yes, we're gonna go swinging into the plot. And unpopular opinion, Curious George theme song is a bop. No one can disagree with that. It is a true bop. It doesn't matter if it's a TV show for kids, and if I'm laughed at, I will proudly say that.
I think it's a bop. It's two levels short of slapping, but
it sure is swanging.
It sure is swanging. It sure is bopping, but it's not quite slapping. But there's a lot of theme songs out there that are, and so it's in good company. I have to agree.
So I can't think of a quote.
William, break, plot,
now,
speak.
So welcome back to our 11th episode, Tarzan of the Apes. We've come back from break, and we'll pass it along to my father to do the plot. Hopefully I wasn't too informational during the cast part, because I was trying to squeeze really ambitiously all of the franchise into a single segment, and that was kind of ambitious. I did pull it off, but hopefully it wasn't boring or a slog.
Well, as my friend, another reviewer, Matt Essery says, he respects, when a movie has ambition. It swings for the fences. It shoots for the moon. Maybe it misses the mark in some places, but at least it tries, and really goes for it. So, and that's at least a moment. That's at least a nod. I honestly, I give you full respect for the ambition, because it's not an easy thing to do. Looking over some things, but in the break though, I think we probably will do another Tarzan movie in the future at some point.
Maybe.
Haven't figured out when. I don't know when. I don't know how. But something's starting right now. All right, so
let's start the movie as it does start with the classic MGM lion. I didn't know that it was there from thinking just the letters MGM, but I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's that lion production company that has the lion at the beginning as their symbol. I definitely know that, but I didn't make the association but they did a pretty good job, and they popularized Tarzan for all of the globe to see.
Yeah, this is our first Metro Goldwyn Mayer production. Anyway, we get the MGM logo, we get the lion. Anytime you see the lion, it just kind of, with old movies, it kind of gets you going. You're like, I'm ready. So this is, of course, based on the work Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It actually, though, isn't based on the first book. The first book is very much a origin story. And Edgar Rice Burroughs even said that he does the first Tarzan movie that they do, officially MGM, he didn't want it based off of a book. He wanted it to be an original story. It kind of started out as a sequel to Trader Horn, and in fact, that's why Jane's father, who we'll talk about shortly, that's why it almost seems to be like they're doing the character of Trader Horn, even though he doesn't play Trader Horn in the Trader Horn movie.
But we do get the actors of the footage in the Trader Horn movie. So,
all right, so here we go. Now, the first scene, we get kind of a dock where it's a place where steamships dock, and we see African tribesmen carrying elephant tusks, which, if you were doing that today, that would probably be considered poaching. But back in the day, I mean, we didn't have the same laws that we did today to take care of animals the way we should.
And the goal of this poaching was for the very valuable ivory, which is found in elephant tusks. And there's also whale ivory, I'm pretty sure, that's also in whales, which is whaling as well.
Yeah, also they would get the
oil.
Well, they would get the whale oil. Yeah, they definitely... you get a lot of that in those.
There was a lot of hunting of all sorts of creatures that nowadays we would preserve because
that's
they
true.
could easily, with these poaching, go extinct. And they very nearly did with the whaling. That got so serious, man.
Yeah, the only thing that saved them was Kirk and Spock. All right. We'll get to that later. So, but first off, and of course, I'll point out the moments when we get to animal scenes and kind of and I had some thoughts about that as we go. So we see people getting off a boat. The camera pulls us over to James Parker General Store Trading. In the book, it's James Porter, not James Parker. I think it is. But anyway,
this is Jane's dad, right?
Jane's dad, James. I might call him Papa Parker or Mr. Parker or James Parker. Interchangeably. So we also get another character that he is with, Harry Holt, who is played by Neil Hamilton, who, of course, as we mentioned in the earlier part of the episode, he is Commissioner Gordon. But that's how I knew him.
But another thing is that Commissioner Gordon is old looking, but this dude is the young version. So again, to mention that is that a lot of the people that we're going to see today that we see later are much older that we see later than they are usually. I mean,
I think that's how that works, is time passes and people get older. I think that's to be expected.
Because, I mean, for instance, we had Boris Karloff in The Grinch, and that dude, the Grinch narrator. But the Grinch narrator sounds extremely old, and the reason is that it's because it's Boris Karloff, but older. A lot of people don't realize that, especially me. So,
well, sometimes you have to kind of, realize that this is early on in his career. His career, Neil Hamilton is his name. Neil Hamilton's career was vast. He had a lot of movies that he did.
And also, that's kind of something we already did, though.
Yeah, that's right. We did talk about that. So anyway, back to the story. So I may dip in and dip out of kind of little interesting tidbits as we go, because that's just how I roll. Okay, so they are talking to an old African man, and they are trying to get information from him about the location of a particular area called a Mutia Escarpment, and it is on a map, and the map is looked to be unmarked, and they don't know what he's saying. I guess we don't either.
Yeah, he's like, no. And I thought that was really funny. He's just like, no.
I think he's saying no. I don't know. Maybe that's just my
at least something that begins with no.
My white privilege kind of, but I don't know if they're actually doing a lot of African.
It's not white privilege.
Well, I think it's my thought, I'm bringing in my sensibilities to it. But I don't think they're really speaking African a lot in this either. Because I think they're making up languages because, honestly, they filmed a lot of this in California.
Or rather that there are many different dialects in Africa spoken by many different people, so that might be a different kind of dialect if they actually did do their research, but they probably made it up.
That's a little bit of a stretch. I'd probably go more with made it up because it just sounds cool. Because as you notice, as we get further in, you'll notice that they put certain animals together that really weren't on the same continent or in the same area. They put a lot of jungle, whereas Africa is mostly grassland and some mountainous areas and things like that, and not heavy jungle like, they almost make it like South America, like the Amazon. Anyway, back to this. So Parker says, Daddy Parker, he says, it's always the same old tales. The escarpment is too sharp. It's too high. They're looking for something called the Elephant's Graveyard, and of course they tell Jane later what that is, and we'll talk about that.
And this becomes a very big plot point, especially in Tarzan and his mate, upon which they go through the Elephant Graveyard and go about it. That movie, I actually thought about this a bit more, but then I realized when I was confused over the whole thing, is like, well, maybe they spent $2 million, and it wasn't good in box office because it was less than $2 million.
I think it was the first one made $1 million, and I
Yes.
honestly think it really was $1 million.
The Tarzan and his mate probably also made like $1 million. It was definitely less than what they spent though for that movie.
Yeah, well,
that makes more sense.
I can tell you, even if you take out the scene that would have been censored by today's standard, if you take that out, you still end up with an even better sequel. I've heard that, and I haven't watched it, but I've heard that the second movie is even better than the first, and probably because you're introducing all the characters. You've got Tarzan, who will be interested. We'll introduce it, and we got Jane, and we got Cheetah,
and they're actually doing something interesting other than setting up their characters' relationship.
Well,
over the course of this movie.
And look, this whole movie hinges upon: do you think that Johnny Weissmuller as Tarzan is charismatic? Hold on, I'll answer that. And do you think that Maureen O'Sullivan as Jane is charismatic and is a multifaceted character? Do you buy the fact that Johnny Weissmuller is the Lord of the Jungle? And I have to answer yes to all that. They are an adorable couple together. They really are.
So much that you could say that this is a romance movie, but
kind of,
they don't really say that. But I think of it as a romance movie.
Yeah, it does evolve over the many, many movies that MGM and RKO do. They do become more of an adventuring power couple. It's less about Jane being a damsel in distress because she can handle herself, but there's some things that she's out of her element on, and
so she's like, "Oh, Tarzan, what am I gonna do with you?" And that's literally how she talked. But
yes, and it's kind of cute how they relate to each other. I mean, and Johnny Weissmuller, it's actually probably a blessing in disguise that he is not asked to say much other than me, Tarzan, you, Jane, or hurt, or boy, or stuff. He just, land, bank. He doesn't don't. He doesn't say much, but most of it is his physicality. It's his
animal relationship. Yeah, we discussed this earlier. The Tarzan, the three Tarzans. Tarzan, the animal guy. Tarzan, the really strong. Tarzan, the one that doesn't speak too much. Those are all his aspects.
That's all him. See, that's the thing and
that makes him a recognizable icon very much because he has these aspects that he all channels and a recognizable form and facade.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Facade.
You're right. You're right. Pretty much you're right. But
it's a facade. Sorry.
Okay, so the thing about Tarzan is, in the books, he actually speaks better English. He learns to speak English and learns it quite well, and he's got a good, grasp of the English language.
Kind of like Frankenstein.
Yeah, I mean, from the Frankenstein original novel. Yes, yeah. Actually, you're right on target. But the thing is, though, you're right. That is the relationship between Tarzan and Frankenstein. Is in the book, he has more of a grasp of English. So does Tarzan. John Clayton, Lord Greystoke. The same is true of both of them. And how do we think of them today? From the movies. We think of Boris Karloff going,
Fire bad.
Well, he doesn't even say that. He does, like I said, he does say more in the 1935
And in this one,
movie.
he does also not say, me Tarzan, you Jane. He never says that. The scene that they're
Tarzan,
talking about...
Tarzan, Jane, yeah.
Yeah, where he's like... He thinks that Jane is you, but then Jane is like, no, Jane. And
Who's
then
on
he's
first?
like, when he finally understands when she points to him, he goes,
Yeah.
Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan, Jane.
Yeah, and he pushes her as he's saying it, and she's like, okay, I got it now.
But that's ahead of the movie, so let's get back to the movie.
But we are getting excited, and that's perfectly cool.
So then
right.
when the guy says that the guy who's, the African guy who's trying to interpret the map, he says, if you keep going like this, he's gonna work him into a juju.
Yeah, what is juju?
It is a supernatural power attributed to a charmer fetish, which is, in West Africa. So that is magic.
I think they're just using the word juju for magic, and the fact that it's a foreign word and they can do whatever they want to with it.
And it also sounds like nonsense, kind of like cuckoo kind of a word.
Well, that's where the word mumbo jumbo came from. I bet you didn't know that the phrase mumbo jumbo, which means gibberish, is actually kind of making fun of Africans. I did not know this, but
it makes sense though. But yeah,
it's like when the people in North Africa are called I'm trying to think of what it is. It's like the word barbarian comes from the word barbar, which is like they were making fun of the way that people spoke that were uncivilized. Barbar, and that's where barbarian came from. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
I know. Anyway, back to
so the elephant graveyard.
Exactly. So they're talking about it. Like I was thinking, I mean, if they're getting the ivory from the elephants that are already dead, I mean, it's not awesome that they're doing it. They are ignoring the tribal
taboo,
which is something you don't talk about, you don't do.
Just like Bruno.
Yes, okay. I mean, Genesis is Planet Forbidden. I mean, you cannot go to the elephant graveyard. You can't.
But they
talk
thought
about Bruno.
that there's so much ivory here, and it's all gonna go to waste unless we harvest it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because after all, it's Britain's land. After all, I mean, there was like a time in history when there's a time that like England, France, maybe Ireland or something. The Dutch, definitely Belgium. They all split the country up into. They owned parts of the country because They tried because they tricked people in English to sign over their land, but they did not know what it said. But they're like, here, you'll sign this. It's not anything bad. It's good. And so they tricked them into signing it. So that was a big part of history.
Well, it's a little bit about, the civilized versus the savage. The civilized believes that just because he has gunpowder and just because he has certain he wears more clothes than others, that he is more civilized and therefore he's more worthy of getting whatever he wants to get. And that's kind of a privileged mindset. It's funny that the animals here are treated like that. The land is treated like that. But nowadays, in the modern world, we would say, let's leave the animals alone, let them live. Let's just watch them and study them, but let's not harm them or stop their way of life. And
because after all, these were given to us by God and are definitely gonna go extinct if we don't do anything about them. So the preservation is
a lot
important.
of these empires. You know what they thought? Is they had what's called manifest destiny. Is they thought God gave all these lands, all the lands of the earth to us to have dominion over. And so instead of just having stewardship over the environment, instead of having stewardship over land and working together with other people who happen to be in the places where you went, no, we're going to take what you got and do it in the name of God and country. And they used God as, sorry to say this, get off on a tangent, but they used God as an excuse to do whatever they want to do and, pillage and destroy. And there's a lot of damage that came from that. And we do see a little bit of that in these
and there's a lot of people
movies
as well that kind of do this as well, like who are villains, but they're all like godly and stuff, like Frollo.
Yeah,
from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yes.
I think there was what was that DreamWorks movie? It was it wasn't the Sinbad one, it was the other one.
It's not El Dorado, no.
Oh yes, El Dorado. I think there's the villain in that, or at least one of them, is a person who was he was actually a Spanish dude, and he was messed up. He just absolutely just addendum mortis all the people. He was also religious, and then there was also one called Wolfwalkers. That one we watched recently.
Yes,
that
we did.
movie is pretty good. It's really good, and the character in that is also religious, but is a villain as well, which is fairly interesting. How like the twisted ways of man intersecting with the religion is very complicated.
Ownership of nature as well. They see nature as something to be destroyed and conquered rather than understood and adapted to. Anyway, so
he saw, he conquered.
Came, saw, conquered. Yeah, that's the Veni Vidi Vici, right. So,
monkey see, monkey do.
Wow, now he brings it back to monkeys. All right, return to monkey.
All right, so
reject the modern world.
The steamship, coming into the land.
Yes,
because
Jane Parker's on it,
and they're like, "Well, we're just gonna go in, get the ivory, get out," kind of mission. And Jane, who is obviously called Porter in the book, it's Jane Parker here, and then Harry Holt comes to greet her, but as obviously is a trope with men, always has to fall in love with the girl. It's just...
Well, he thinks, here's what he thinks. I think subconsciously, he thinks, well, I'm British, I'm modern, I'm the only white man you've seen you're going to see for quite a while.
But it's sometimes very tiring to see. It's
I've got
like
first
there's
dibs
always got
on
to,
you.
There's got to be always the person that has to get the girl in the movie or attempt to. Get all smoochy all up against her and stuff, and I'm just like, well,
no, it's he tries to make a move on her.
There's more admirable things, and he's trying to move in and be like,
but she's nice.
Hey girl, you're kind of beautiful, you know that.
Yeah,
and that's like,
oh man, you if this is your moves, I don't think we have to worry about.
So Jane has moved into the area, into a house she just has so many bags. They're just big, enormous briefcases. Well, not briefcases. They're cases that are rectangular, extending vertically, and just a suitcase.
Right. She's got as many suitcases as Minecraft has bricks. All right. So here's what happens. She comes in, and she's bringing all her civilized things there, which interestingly enough, it shows that she's still got emotional baggage as well from
emotional baggage
from civilization. She isn't living wild yet, but it's funny that she brings all that stuff from civilization, but she says, "I want to be a savage," right? Which is kind of funny because she
kind of get out of the culture of civilization's norm, where the jungle is more exciting and adventurous.
Yes, but it's also dangerous. It's also you've got to depend on yourself. You've got to depend on your tribe. It's very live or die. You could be alive one moment, dead the next. And with civilization, it's boring, but it's a little more safe, I have to say. But
yes.
But now they're in Africa, which is a place they don't understand, and so danger is definitely there. All right, so there's a part where there's a helper that Jane's dad has named Beamish, right? He only shows up for 2 scenes. I think he only shows up... He shows up 3 times. I think one time to either die, one time to greet her. He greets her, and he's like surprised that she's all grown up, and he says, "Africa's an awful hole." And Jane kind of says, "Well, yeah, that's true." And I'm like, yikes. it's kind of problematic. So there's a lot of problematic stuff in this movie. If you watch this movie with a modern mindset, you're going to notice a lot of sketchy stuff in it.
And especially the 1930s is a wholly different culture from the 2000s that we live in now. Even, like, the 1960s was different, but this is, like, way more different. You think 1970s and 80s is old? Well, wait till you get a look at this. Because, I mean, when Dad was born, that's old to him. Or rather nostalgic, because it's his childhood. But there's people who, like, your great-grandma lived during then, probably. So that's, like, amazing. Anyway, we've barely gotten through this movie.
I know. Okay, so we are chopping through this movie like explorers going through the jungle. All right, so here's what happens. Another problematic thing you'll see is the help that they have and how they treat them. They call them things like boy, and they call the white men Buana, which means master, which if you kind of think about it through the lens of
they're hired men.
Slavery.
Yeah, they are kind of slaves and hired men to carry all their bags because they can't carry them themselves because they have so much. Like, why do you need to bring this much stuff unless it's important stuff like food, water, and, I don't know, camping equipment? I mean, there are people who can put stuff on their backs and be... they don't have to have helpers, but, like, they're just like, bring everything, you know? Bring my Lamborghini, too, while you're at it.
If there was one, yeah, but here's the thing, too, is...
they thought themselves higher than the hired.
Yeah, it's something we're going to see a lot of in a lot of these exploration movies. All right, so here's the thing. Jane, this is pre-Hays Code. So Jane, of course, she is attractive. She was chosen to be Jane based upon a headshot, which is industry speak for a photo that she had. That they saw. They're like, oh, she's great. She looks great. And that's what they got her on. But she actually is a good actress.
And she is a nice doll of a girl, especially because
she's adorable. But she starts to, take off her clothes like she's getting into her pajamas or whatever, her PJs. In front of her dad, and her dad kind of gets embarrassed about it. But of course, she's doing it right in front of the camera.
She's like, well, you've seen me as a baby. You've bathed me. You've spanked me. You've done all this stuff and literally raised me. And,
hey, it takes all kinds. I mean, some people are real free with all that. But anyway, the point is that they know that Maureen O'Sullivan is an asset, so to speak. They know that they're going to show her off a little bit, and they do that a little bit more in the next movie, unfortunately, but they do that less and less as the movies go, I will tell you.
But then finishing the scene, she then puts on some cream of makeup, some sort of thing. She says why she did is to keep the schoolgirl appearance, because she's like...
It sounds like she's doing an ad for Noxzema or something. Anyway.
What are you trying to do?
Clean my face.
But what's wrong with soap and water?
Everything, darling. Let's preserve that schoolgirl complexion.
All right, so after that, this is where we see the first of the
Trader Horn footage.
The Trader Horn stock footage. And you know what? It's absolutely chef's kiss, seamless. I can't tell where the footage from Tarzan begins. The Trader Horn footage ends. It looks like it's seamless.
But it's like they're standing in front of the PowerPoint presentation being projected on the wall, or like a Windows desktop.
Right, the footage does not really match up.
Hopefully you're not using Windows 11.
Yeah, well they're asking questions, questions about the different tribes and stuff. And I you know what? They got the footage. They need to use it. Might as well. So they start to talk to Jane and kind of give her an idea about why they're there. He talked about the Mutia escarpment. And she may have been told fairy tales by her dad, like when she was little about it. But the key interesting thing here, and it does come up later, so it's a little bit of a good little tidbit, is that an elephant, when he's dying, he can tell death is coming for him. And when he hears the call of death, there's a secret place to which he wanders, a place where he can lay his bones with his ancestors' place of rest, the secret graveyard of the elements. Did I say elements? Oh, no. Elephants. Sorry. All right.
But it's like, how on earth did the elephants really get there? Who knows?
It's a difficult place to get to.
Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah, exactly. Where did they come from? Where did they go? So the trick is with the Mutia escarpment, as it's called, which we're going to hear that a billion times during this movie. How did they travel to this place? Yeah, don't ask questions. It's an adventure movie. Have fun with it. It's just like Mystery Science Theater tells us to. It's just a show. You should really just relax. So the Mutia escarpment is sacred and taboo, like we said earlier. If anybody outside of particular tribes ever see it, the witch doctors will actually try to kill them. Certain tribes will actually try to kill them.
And it's so valuable an area that they've been like, we're going to pay you so much money, the amount of money that we got from this film to get to this place. And which they do at the end of the movie. So technically they won their $1 million.
Yeah, that's useful. So there's supposedly £1 million for the man. He said around £1 million is for the man who finds it.
And so also Jane wasn't going to come until she's like, well, I'll prove my worth. Give me a rifle.
Can you shoot?
Like an angel.
Rihanna, Anna, let me have that rifle.
And then she gets a rifle, and then she throws a hat, and then
it's Beamish's hat.
Beamish's hat, and then she shoots it, which is it's skill, definitely.
Yeah, it's very old school kind of take no prisoners kind of new woman that was kind of going around.
And nowadays they usually like shoot birds up into the sky like Mach 2 or something.
Right, yeah. In the next scene, they are traveling. They know that Jane can handle herself, so she's going with them. She is talking with Harry by the fire, and she's really liking hearing all the sounds of the animals and different things. It's kind of scares her a little bit, but she's kind of intrigued. She loves it. So, Harry's trying to make his move on her, and she's being kind of nice to him. She isn't really saying no. But she's not really giving him any like...
Yeah, Africa
signs.
Does feel kind of homely. It's wet and stinky and full of bugs and mud and some sticks and roots and probably some poisonous animals and plants that could poison you, and you could probably die from it, although not being deadly, just because you don't have any medical attention.
Well, they'll be fine. So they start hearing some drums, and they're coming closer as if a tribe is traveling through the jungle, which they are. Which I thought about it for a second. I just was like, is there like one of the tribesmen, and he's got like a snare drum, attached to him, kind of like like a drum line, and he's just he's got the two sticks. I'm like, how do they drum and move while they're drumming? I don't know.
Well, how do marching bands do it? The exact same way.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. All right. So a tribesman. Not part of that group, though. He runs through the jungle, and he's about to pass out. They get him some water, and they found out that he has just seen the Mutia escarpment. It's sacred, it's holy, it's not meant to be seen, so he is going to get, X'd out. So a war party from the Ubangi tribe is coming out of the darkness. But Harry, I guess he's doing it to help the guy, but he covers him over with a sheet and sits on it like he's a couch. But once they kind of talk the tribe into leaving... there's nothing there to see, and it's kind of a tense situation, standoff. Once they do that, they found out the guy's dead. But as James Porter, Mr. Porter, the dad, he recognizes that the guy had already pointed to the direction where the Mutia escarpment is. So they go out to the like a passageway to the escarpment. It's like on a cliff. It's really dangerous.
But it's a very janky cliff, because it's probably like some area in Outback where there's like a drop off to some sand below.
A 2-foot drop off.
A 2-foot drop off. So it's kind of like a trail, but they repurpose it to be a cliff, it kind of looks janky and weird.
Well, it's an insane drop off, like.
But in the movie, yeah, it is an insane drop off. A dude even falls down it because he's kind of dumb, and Jane also kind of does as well. But they eventually get across.
They have to show that there's danger, and here you'll find this throughout this movie, is to show that this is a dangerous situation. They have to kill off somebody. And generally, they have to kill off somebody of color so that the white people will realize it's dangerous.
Because they're kind of like the red shirts of the movie. But then even still, yeah, they're like, wow, this dude just died, and they're demoralized. And so it's like, you and I'm going to whip you into shape again.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, poor fella, and they move on.
Mans need some whoopings.
Yeah, it's rough. I would not want to be working for these people. So they finally get through there. Jane, like you said, Jane almost falls, but she's got a rope attached to her, to Harry, so she survives. They have to keep whipping them in to get them to go. They do take a rest, and they hear an unearthly cry. Of course, you and I both know that's Tarzan's famous yell because we've heard it in other places, even if we've never seen this movie. We know what it sounds like. But here, put yourself in the mindset of people back in 1932. They've never heard this cry before, and they hear it, and they're like, what was that? I mean, just think about it. If you've never heard it before and you hear that sound, you're like, okay. It's got to be confusing and kind of a little bit like exhilarating because you're like, what could that be? Anyway, so they want to forge ahead, but some men don't want to go because they're afraid, and now it's time to whip them again. I'm getting tired of that. I'd quit by then.
And so then they have to go across the river.
Yes, and and strangely enough, they have to face what I would call the most dangerous creature in Africa, which is the hippopotamus. You never know how many are underneath you, and they could just with one quick motion.
But in truth, this
you.
is just stock footage and model puppetry, not puppetry,
animatronic kind of style. Yeah, things that they're scooting underneath they're like a shell of a fake hippo that they're shuttling underneath the water, probably with swimmers maybe swimming it underneath. I don't know. So, okay. So, and a lot of these shots and things like that, I would like to talk to you about something, William. There were not a lot of zoos back in the 1930s with, in America, with animals like you would see here in Africa. So, this was amazing to people.
Because it's like we see so many different types of animals, like the zebra and the cantaloupe. Yes, the cantaloupe. We have cantaloupes in the jungle.
No, it's an antelope, not a cantaloupe.
And we also have monkeys of all sorts, and we have hippos and crocodiles and alligators and everything and the whole
They'd
9
never
yards.
seen anything like this before, and then they get to see it in this movie. So, I mean, think about how exotic it must have seemed for them. Anyway, so we get scenes with crocodiles because people fall off, get knocked off the rafts into the water. There's still no Tarzan. Where's Tarzan? Well, he doesn't show up until 35 minutes into this movie. So he does come in. I remember a scene from Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, says, we were promised dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour. John, please. That's what I was thinking about. It's like we were promised Tarzan in this Tarzan movie.
But thing is, we don't get him for 25 minutes. Goodness.
I thought it was 35.
So in short, they get over after facing hippos with guns and some crocodiles as well. A guy gets downed as well.
And of course, what color is he?
Not Caucasian.
He's not Caucasian, yeah. All right, so but the crocodiles look, when they're not stock footage, they look super fake because their eyeballs are big and googly.
So anyway, Tarzan's yell then scares off the hippos that were chasing them from out of the water, and then the zebra comes, the jungle zebra that's supposed to be in a plane.
The jungle zebra. You mean not the zebra?
I guess
the
a lot of times they didn't think that people would know better and would just go in
and they
for
probably
an adventure
don't.
movie.
They probably don't. This was all exotic to them. They don't know what Africa looks like. They don't know what Africans are. They don't know what African language is. They don't know anything. They only know what people made movies of and told them.
This is like Mars for them.
Yeah. Well, that's why they called it the dark continent, because it was a place of things of mystery, things we didn't know. But the thing is, though. But to the people that live there, though, it's their home. It's not a mystery to them. It's only a mystery to the white people. And the white people want to solve it by conquering it. Isn't it great?
And so then Tarzan comes, right? And then takes Jane?
Well, we see apes and monkeys up in the trees. And we see a young, handsome dude in a loincloth swinging around like he's on a trapeze, because he is.
Yes, they do the common move that is associated with most trapeze, where there's one dude, Tarzan, and then the ape as well on the other side, and they do a two-person, where the first guy, the Tarzan swings, and then he grabs the ape's hands and then swings the rest of the way. It's very famous. Awesome?
It is really cool. All right, so he's up in the tree, and he's curious. He won't come down. He won't respond to English. He won't respond to African. He's just there. Now, nearby, we get a hint of I wouldn't say enemy, I would say more of an antagonistic group, because, I mean, are these white people on their territory? And are
the
they
warrior
mad?
tribe of little people.
They are not pygmies, as Jane's father says they aren't. They are just dwarves, and that's true. They are mostly Caucasian,
but they have blackface, and they put stuff. They put like a bulbous like head out of like clay or like, I don't know, hollow or something, to make their heads look more bulbous and strange as well. So that they look more alien.
Yeah, and they do get some good. They do shoot some arrows out and get some guys. So that allows Tarzan then takes Jane away to the ape conclave. All right,
so where then they sleep.
Yeah, he's pretty rough with her though, but he's learning. You know, they're starting to relate to each other. It's a little tentative at first. He's a little rough because he's the kind of, you know, the ape savage. He's an animal, pretty much, and she's, you know, reacting to that.
And he also takes her handkerchief, him and the monkey cheetah as well. They're just destroying it because they don't understand what it is. They're just like, this is worth destroying. This is worthless.
It's a quick little scene, but let's talk about Cheetah for half a second. So Cheetah is played by
Jigs the chimpanzee.
And Jigs is female. The reason probably why they did this is because, you know, you don't want a male chimpanzee who's not wearing clothes to, if it's a female. Also, the thing is, I heard from another source that I was listening to that Jigs did not like Maureen O'Sullivan. Jigs liked Johnny Weissmuller better. I guess because the females get a little bit, you know, agitated around each other. I don't know what the deal was, but they had to put like a little invisible little wire or rope around Cheetah's or Jigs's foot or leg or whatever to keep her away from Maureen O'Sullivan, or just to kind of keep her in line because she'd get, you know, irritated. So that's just a little interesting part of that. Anyway, so there's not a lot of speaking between both of them. The sun starts getting low, and so he looks up at it and goes, "Okay, well, it's time to go to sleep." So he grabs her and takes her over to his little jungle house, which basically is just a hollow in the tree.
And instead he goes and sleeps on the branch, kind of like a sacrifice for protection.
He drags her in there, and she kind of struggles and shrieks a little bit, but realizes he doesn't really mean her harm, and he does sleep outside. So once it's time to get up, a big ape comes over, and he drags her out to meet the ape, and the ape's a little bit rough, though, and he does kind of protect her from the ape. And he has kindness in his heart, and this is where you get the whole scene we talked about.
They introduce each other as Jane and Tarzan. Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan, Jane, Tarzan.
Yeah, it's great. It's definitely a clip that we should do at some point.
And then after which, then Tarzan is like, "You hungry? Food." And that is me audibly patting my belly.
Yes,
and then,
that was good.
Then Jane gets confused. She's like, "Let me go, but don't leave me alone." And it's like, make up your mind, girl.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, they are very cute together, the way they're relating, and they've got good chemistry. All right, so Tarzan is stalking for wildebeest beef.
The classic jungle wildebeest.
Yes, he hears elephants. You get the first kind of look at elephants. Of course, they are Indian elephants with attachments on their ears to look African. We do hear the iconic Tarzan yell. You see him do it. It's great.
Because when he doesn't know what to do, all he does it for random reasons, even underwater, because it's so iconic that it's just like, "Shut up already." It's like saying your catchphrase constantly.
It is his catchphrase.
It is his catchphrase.
So it does multiple things. Have you noticed that
it's like saying, "I'm vengeance, I'm vengeance, I'm vengeance, I'm vengeance." It's like, yes, we know, you're vengeance. Ha.
Right. So I was thinking that's okay. So he calls elephants with it. He also can tell hippos to back off. He also can warn different things. He calls the apes, right? So it does everything. It's multi-purpose. So he calls an elephant.
Uberfant.
And the elephant comes, he gets distracted from him because there's an elephant that's stuck in a pit, and he helps the elephant out of a jam. Oh, I just thought of it. And then, of course, later on in the movie, they do the same for him.
It's kind of like a we helped you, you help us kind of thing. So he gets helped out of a jelly and then gets the beef. And then what happens next?
Well, of course, you get a lion fight. You get some stabbing. It's just a little montage, really, of...
We're summing it up.
Yeah, we are. He does get some steak off the wildebeest and leaves the rest for the lion. Jane is watching a female ape playing with its baby, and that's kind of cool. I mean, she's getting to understand these people.
But then the group finally catches up to her then?
Yes, and she kind of feels like the pull of civilization, that she has to go back to them, and she doesn't want to, but she knows she has to. She doesn't want to leave Tarzan because he gets this look in his eye, and she's just like, when you look like
They're
that...
like, hey, Jane, what are you doing monkeying around over there? And then Tarzan comes back. They shoot...
They shoot his monkey friend, not Cheetah, but the bigger ape.
And then the mother is down, and then they try and shoot Tarzan as well. It's like, anything strange, just shoot at it.
Tarzan, mad. Oh, he's so mad. And he cries out in sadness, and it's like you really feel it. So they have left, but like almost like a slasher villain, he starts picking off people of the different people that work for the Parker expedition. He starts picking them off one by one. And, Jane has a conversation with her dad, and with that you kind of get the idea that they think he's not human, or he's strange. We got to leave him alone. And Jane says, she almost like feels a connection with him and knows that he's human, right? And Holt, who didn't have really a chance before, he just trashes all his chances because he walks up and makes fun of Jane for saying killing the ape was wrong and that it was cruel to Tarzan. He thinks it's funny that anyone considers Tarzan's feelings. He should have blasted him in the face. And Jane says he's being absurd. Okay, so if Harry thought he ever had a chance, he certainly doesn't now.
Because it's like, I like Tarzan more. He's actually a human.
Yes. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah,
he's a human, but you're not. Sorry.
You're inhuman. No, that's good. It kind of shows that the one who everyone thinks is savage is actually noble, and the one that everyone thinks is noble is actually the savage. It's a little bit of an interplay that
maybe
we'll
when
get.
Something becomes more intelligent than you are, that is true evil. That's kind of explored in Frankenstein, kind of. That's interesting.
That is a good point. Thanks for making that.
Intelligence is related to, the progression of man, but it's also related to, the possibility as evils. That's really interesting.
It is good. And we're going to see a lot more, I think, with intelligence and evil and what is savage and what is civilized.
Especially in our next episode.
Movie, yeah.
Of which covers the story of Dr. Moreau, which is a very classic story by H.G. Wells?
Yes.
Alongside Frankenstein as well.
I'm gonna
go read that.
You can do that. I'll find it for you. We're gonna do a couple of H.G. Wells adaptations in the coming months. Okay, so here we go. They find the bearer or the servant that Tarzan drowned. They found footprints in the mud, and they're like, "It's got to be Tarzan." Tarzan kills another bearer fetching firewood. Jane feels like she can convince Tarzan. Only she can convince Tarzan not to kill out everybody, and the total party kill here. Harry takes the opportunity to shoot Tarzan. He does hit him, and he's definitely rolling with disadvantage here. A lioness takes advantage of him, chases him up and down a tree. They have a fight. It's actually a decent fight because most of it is fought with the lion and some with a stuffed lion, but not enough. There's enough cutaway where you can kind of blend it and kind of go, okay. Stabs the lion. They're down. The lion husband comes, take advantage of that. We get some 2 lion fights. It's pretty good, but he is really bleeding out. Tarzan calls for an elephant with the magic yell. He then faints after conquering the 2 lions. The elephant sets him up on a riverbank and tries to wake him up with a squirt of water to the face. And the elephant, I didn't know elephants speak ape, but I guess they do. I don't know. I guess the Disney Tarzan thing was right.
Because it's an elephape. Obviously.
Oh, an elephape. So they call for monkey relatives to come to his aid. They can't do too much. Except what they do is they take Jane like a sack of potatoes and chuck her from ape to ape, and it's a pretty funny little scene, I gotta admit.
And this is kind of like a thing where it's like, you know, that Spider-Man 2 scene with where they carry Spider-Man? That's kind of the thing that they're doing, except they...
Oh, man.
to lay him down.
So Jane is able to bandage up Tarzan, and he actually responds, and that's cool. But in the next scene, he acts like ain't nothing wrong. I guess his powers of regeneration are amazing. He is a superhero. So Jane is about to take a bath in the river, but probably shouldn't because it's pretty dirty. Although when you see the water, it looks pretty clean to me. So Tarzan's coming through from a tree. Still got the bandage on, no blood. He does some gymnastics and he's swinging around, and Jane's worried about him like a mom for a child, like he's gonna get dizzy. She's like, "Oh, stop it, Tarzan! You're gonna get dizzy. You're gonna fall down." She's treating him like a little kid in a way. He dives in the river. They have a little bit of time where he's teasing her, dunking her a little bit.
Because he thinks that bank is dunk. She's like, "Take me to the riverbank." He's like, "Bank? Yes." And then he ducks her. He's like, "No, I didn't say that. I said bank." And he's like, "Bank?" He's like, "Yes." Dunk. And it's like, no.
Yeah, they're kind of playing around a little bit.
This does develop their relationship over the course of the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of a meet cute in a way. So you can see where the Disney Tarzan kind of got the idea for this. There's a part where he's kind of tickling her foot, is interested in her foot, and
they also realize that his hand is just like her hand, or rather different but similar. So he's like, "Wow, we're kind of the same, but not really. I'm human."
He is less like the apes than he is more like Jane and her people. The first time they meet, there's not a lot of depth to their relationship, but it grows over that. I was wondering if it's kind of a female fantasy of a big, strong, dumb, silent type.
So like a silent but deadly strong?
Yes. Okay, so we go back to the explorer party, and the men are tired. Maybe they should give them a break, but when they sit down and want to have a break, they don't get it, and they get whipped. It just... I mean, I didn't know that they were doing the same thing that Amazon does to its employees.
Nah, don't make that joke.
No, that's topical and it's true. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid of Amazon. All right.
What? All right.
It's true. I'll tell you the details later. So anyway, seeing Commissioner Gordon whip people and they happen to be black people, that's not awesome, Commissioner Gordon. So Jane is just chilling. And Tarzan brings some fruit, which is nice. She's kind of cool now. She says she's happy, not a bit afraid, not a bit sorry. Tarzan, Jane, hurt me, boy, love it, Jane. Okay, great. That's what Tarzan says. And I'm like, that's a really complex thing you're saying there. And what's funny is in the next scene, they go back to the explorers. Mr. Parker is tired and needs to take a rest. And Harry's like, "Oh, sure, let's take a rest." But if black people want to rest, he wants to whip them. It's kind of problematic, but it's double standard.
Yeah, they can't even take all the rest of this stuff because it contains the word rest.
Exactly. So soon after that, Jane sees the exploration party again, and she starts putting on her boots like she's got to go. Yeah, she wants to stay in the jungle forever with Tarzan, but then she sees her dad, and she realizes that the dream is over, the illusion is fading. Her dad shows up, it's time to go home, I can't play anymore. She's playing at being free away from civilization, but she has no idea what that truly entails, though. She said she can't stay because her dad loves her and she's all that he's got, which is kind of interesting toward the end. I'll tell you a bit later. But they get reunited. And her dad says, "You have to let him go. He belongs to the jungle." And she says,
He belongs to me.
But then, now, we come to toward the ending sequence. That's because out of the bushes comes the dwarf tribe.
To then capture the crew and into their area.
Yeah, but Jane sees Cheetah on the bank, and she tells Cheetah to...
It's like, "Go, Tarzan!"
7 times. Yeah, it's like, "Cheetah, go after Tarzan. Tarzan, go after Cheetah." 7 times she says it to him.
Yeah, 7 times, and then the rooster crows before you will obey me.
So here's the thing: we get to see Cheetah go after Tarzan in excruciating detail. I'm sorry, I like this movie otherwise, but it has some scenes that probably could be cut short a little bit.
Traveling time and riverbank.
Skip it, right? So what happens is Jane and everybody is at the dwarf tribe's place, and they are having a good old time. They are very excited because they want to feed the Parkers and Harry
to a ginormous gorilla.
Yes.
Maybe the long-lost Kerchak. Kerchak was inspired by.
Yeah, but they never say it's Kerchak. I think Kerchak had more.
Kerchak is from the Disney Tarzan movies, so I guess.
And also the book.
And the book as well. So
yes, the books are you would really like the books. I think.
And so they're dancing back and forth like hey, and like stuff while they're being sacrificed to the ape.
And while that's happening, Tarzan is they're showing Tarzan coming in excruciating detail. They have to show him getting chased by 2 crocodiles.
And he swings upon the trapezes multiple times, showing off his...
his amazing prowess. He's getting a huge tribe of elephants to, I guess, repay him for helping one of them out of a pit. So what ends up happening is it's almost like the Rancor. They're throwing Luke Skywalker to the Rancor in Return of the Jedi.
Exactly. Right. And kind of like the thing that also happens in Book of Boba Fett as well.
Yeah, so what they end up having to do is they take these ropes and they attach them to people and then lower them down to the ape. The first couple people they do it to, though, unfortunately, are the servants.
Yes.
Which kind of sucks that they have to dye like red shirts to prove that there's a danger. It just sucks. Now, when they get Jane, they do try to get her down to the ape. Harry jumps in to try to stop that, which is kind of heroic, but he gets chucked against a stone wall, and he's out. The dad jumps down there too, and he has like a torch. The ape throws the dad like he's throwing a 3-pointer. He throws him up to the top like a little cliff part. And now, here we go. Now we got Tarzan coming in to the rescue. He leaps down, fights the ape, but the thing is, the cheetah jumps down there too, and the ape beats cheetah against the ground and chucks cheetah away.
Tarzan and the monkey are just having a big old BMW and just crushing everyone in their way as they're just fighting and getting all bloody and sweaty.
Yeah, Tarzan throws a knife into the ape's eyeball.
And then the elephants come in, they smash the village?
Yes, the dwarfs in the trees start blowing a horn because the elephants are coming like a big stampede. They rush in.
And they're busting everything down.
Earlier on, we're like, the elephants are the good guys, but the destruction these guys bring is insane.
It's like they didn't even do anything. All they did was try and sacrifice some people to an ape. That's not any trouble.
And, well, the thing is, also, here's the thing, too, is there's some scenes where the elephants have javelins stabbed into their back, and they're, limping. I don't think those are... Part of me says, okay, maybe they're trained, and maybe that's how I sleep at night, is I'm able to just think, oh, they're trained to do that. But it's possible that they were hurt to make them do that, which is kind of problematic to watch. So, after they escape, smash the whole village out.
Jane's dad has gotten absolutely beaten. Cheetah's absolutely fine.
He's okay. Cheetah, he
cheetah'd at life.
Right. He did his death saves. He got those. He just completely popped.
He's like, you say 9 lives are for cats. I say 9 lives are for monkeys.
Yeah, exactly. And he came back up with 1 HP, so he's cool. So Papa Parker is on an elephant, and Tarzan and Jane are on an elephant. But the elephant that Papa Parker's on has a javelin in his back, and he's going to die. The elephant. So Tarzan pulls the javelin out and says, "You need to get on this other elephant. We need to leave this one here because he's going to die." Papa Parker's going remember that an elephant, when it's died, goes to the elephant graveyard. So they figure they'll follow him to the elephant graveyard. So they do make it there, and when they get there, Papa Parker dies.
Yes, I guess it's a good thing to die on your mission. You're just you devoted it so much that it's worth dying for. Well, you already died for it, so yes, it is worth.
He's also her last, connection to civilization.
Everyone else is dead. There's literally, how on earth are you going to get back home? There's no airplane or ship for you. So,
Harry Holtz is alive. So what Harry's going to do, he's kind of, I guess, made his peace with the fact that he's
probably going to get a big party, come back.
A second safari, group together.
Yeah, grab all the elephants and elephant bones and take them.
Yeah, and Jane says that we will protect the party when it comes back through. And as they get to the top of, there's no music at all most of this movie, except at the end when they play the theme from Romeo and Juliet, which is kind of sweet. It's kind of on the nose, though.
Except neither of them die.
Yes, they don't die. This is the last scene.
I thought this movie was it was pretty okay. I mean,
it was
satisfying,
okay.
And it got what it did. It started a big, enormous Tarzan craze that continued and has still been in the minds of people today. And every time you think of Tarzan, you think of the classic Weissmuller cry. Oh,
I thought it was. I can't do it. I can't do it full on.
That's the German dub's Tarzan cry.
Yeah, some of the other Tarzan cries, though, there's a couple of movies or TV shows where they just reuse the Johnny Weissmuller call, and there's other ones that use like variations that they did. Now, as a side note, there is the first actor to play Tarzan was Elmo Lincoln in a silent film. And he beats his chest and makes some kind of roar noise, and you don't hear it what it is. But there is a clip of somebody interviewing Elmo Lincoln later in his life. He said, "Will you do the Tarzan yell for us?" And he goes, "Oh, sure I will." And he did it, and we'll play it here.
You mean this?
Yeah, it does not sound good. It does not sound good or iconic at all. Some of the other more modern movies, I think okay, Disney's Tarzan did pretty much the Weissmuller yell with a variation.
Well, it was the child Tarzan. I'm pretty sure does it a lot more commonly than Tarzan the adult did.
It's cute, it's adorable. But then when the Tarzan,
the one reason why you watch Tarzan 2 is for the baby Tarzan.
Yeah, he's great. But the more modern movies like Greystoke that came out in 1984, and then Legend of Tarzan, which I think we'll probably watch, which some people liked and some people didn't. I guess it didn't make a lot of money. It didn't come out but it was decent. There's a part where Tarzan does do the roar off in the distance, and Jane recognizes it and go, "Oh, there he is. He can come save me from this problem." It sounds like a gorilla roar and a lion roar mixed. And so the Greystoke one does too. And it sounds like it's because Tarzan is mimicking a beast noise. So I got to admit, I haven't read the books in a while, but I wonder if that's what his call kind of more sounds like.
It's his calling card. But the next movie we're doing is The Island of Lost Souls, which features either Bela Lugosi or Lon Chaney Jr.
No, it has, okay, I'll tell you, it has Bela Lugosi in a small role. And honestly, between you and me, I think he doesn't need to be in this movie. He doesn't add a ton to it. He has some interesting lines for a moment or two. But honestly, the one guy that you really need to watch out for as being a really good actor in this is a man named Charles Laughton. I have a lot to say about him during the production part in our next episode. But Charles Laughton, for the majority of his career, was really knocking it out of the park as an actor. In his later years, he was kind of phoning it in and doing okay. But, and there's some interesting connections that he had to another movie that we will do later down the road. But Charles Laughton played a Dr. Moreau in the next movie because the real title of it should have been Island of Dr. Moreau, but Island of Lost Souls sounds creepier.
Or that they couldn't, use the rights and stuff.
Yeah, well, I have a lot to say.
And then again, yes, I haven't heard about this movie at all. It'll be pretty cool to watch it. I'll have some good thoughts about it. But for now, This was a pretty good episode, and we'll see you then.
Yep, we will leave a jungle where there are man and beasts and savagery and civilization.
And enter an island.
We will enter an island that has a jungle on it that has the interplay between savagery and civilization. So,
well, the only thing that might have a parallel is that jungle, sea goal. So, well, I mean, that's explanatory.
What? Okay.
They both have goals, so whatever.
Oh, goals. Oh, funny. All right, so we will leave Tarzan to hang out with his new girlfriend, Jane, on top of that rock.
And William Jason will be back.
William
for another episode next week.
That was kind of a chest beating. We'll leave you with that. Have a good one, and we'll see you next episode.
Don't forget to open your third eye and telepathically message us at cinefanpod@gmail.com. Set your chronoscope dial to the future setting and peruse cinematicfanpodcast.wordpress.com. Hunker over your ham radio as your keen ears listen for the ghostly voices tweeting on our Twitter @CinematicFanta1. Exchange all of your money into Republic credits and donate at our Patreon page at patreon.com/cinefanpodcast. Ending transmission now.